folks. Welcome to Education Matters, another episode. I'm Deborah Olsta, and with me today I have a co-host named Marie Banfield from Cornerstone Action. Hi, Marie.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Great, and today we may have a guest calling in. We may have Frank Ginta, who is on the road right now. He's just not going to make it, I don't think, but he may call in and talk to us about education and his views and position on perhaps Common Core, which we'll be very interested in hearing from him about, and many other questions as well. Well, you've probably already seen a few of these flyers around town. Yes, the women or the mothers are advocating for their children, and if you haven't seen this, you'll be seeing it soon. It's a Broken Promises Hurt Our Children flyer, and Anne-Marie, we can just go over this a little bit and let the people know basically what it's about here and what we're trying to say about the standards and about the school board meeting that is coming up on August 11th at 7 p.m. at City Hall. Parents all need to be there. Bring your kids. We'll let the kids sit and the adults will stand. Basically, we just need to show that we are opposed to Common Core, the lowered standards, and all the rest of it, Anne-Marie.
Well, and I think what parents need to ask for is they need to know that what Manchester has developed is better than Common Core. That was pretty much the charge. I think everybody was in agreement when the school board decided to develop local standards, and Manchester had access to the nation's top experts in standards, Sandra Stotsky and James Milgram, both as standards experts, professors of mathematics and English language arts, and without their stamp of approval, I'm not sure how anybody, school board member, administrator, anybody can move forward with what's being proposed. They need to know that what they're going to be implementing in the school is valid, good quality standards. And right now, that information hasn't been given to anybody. Dr. Stotsky and Dr. Milgram have not weighed in on whether or not these standards are good enough to move forward, and from what it looks like, they're not. So,
in fact, Dr. Stotsky said the other day on another public access show that these standards at present are unprofessional and incomplete.
Right.
Incomplete and unprofessional. There's no draft that says from beginning to end that the parents can look at and can make heads or tails of, and which standards are above the floor, since they told us the Common Core was going to be the floor. Oh, what did you do? Did you make these standards better, or did you not? We're not going to have the wool pulled over our eyes. So, since Dr. Stotsky said that, I think we are on red alert right now.
Right. They have offered their services pro bono, so there's no cost to the taxpayers. So when you had the teachers sit down and develop standards, and you had these individuals, these experts available, this was a recipe for success. And unfortunately, it's turning into a recipe for failure, a recipe what not to do in your school district. And so if parents truly want the best for Manchester, they need to show up at that meeting, and they need to say, look, we need to have confidence in what you are handing us. Go back to these standards experts, have them work with the teachers. I think it's a wonderful idea to bring in teachers, local teachers, without a doubt, and make sure that what you are being given is the best standards in the country. We have examples of quality academic standards out there. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. So you can either basically use those standards and work with those standards, but what is being promoted right now and given to the parents is not something that I don't think anybody can be confident in. If these experts are not saying that this is good for you, then you need to push the school board back and say, look, we want to make sure that these are the best. For instance, just to point to some of the problems in the Common Core standards, by the time your children get to 4th grade, if you follow Common Core, they're a year behind their international peers because they introduce addition and subtraction proficiencies a year later. That is the kind of information that a Dr. Milgram can give to you. If he does an analysis of the Manchester standards and says, this is, you have a missing concept. For instance, conversions are not, conversions of fractions, decimals, and percents are not in the Common Core standards. So if these are not in the Common Core standards, Parents need to know this. And so what the school board charged the parents with is read our standards and let us know what you think. Well, I don't think a lot of parents understand what's going on in Singapore and can compare it to what's going on with the Manchester Academic Standards or the Common Core Standards. So that's why these individuals, these experts, offered their services pro bono for free of charge to help you better understand it. But the school never went that far, never went to the step of saying, Dr. Milgram, Dr. Stotsky, here's what we have. What do you think of these? Can you do an analysis of this? I think Dr. Stotsky had asked for the standards that they have now been developed, that they're in draft form, to be put in a form that identifies where the floor is, and if this is a Manchester standard, has this been elevated? I think that's a fair question. Parents need to know this. And your assistant superintendent, David Ryan, seemed almost agitated at the thought of having to put that information out there to parents. And that is just so disappointing. This is information parents need. You want feedback from parents, but yet it seems like they don't want to give the information to parents in order to make that judgment. So there's much more information that needs to be shared with parents to make a valid decision on whether or not what standards they want to add in, if they want to add anything to them. That's the kind of feedback you get from these experts, and then the parents can weigh in. It seems like they want to cut that information out, just here, read this and tell us what you think. And I've tutored math. I've never taught in a classroom. I'm an education researcher, but even I know my limitations. And to ask parents to go through these standards and identify, for instance, do these standards put children on a path to Algebra 1 by 8th grade? That's one of the biggest criticisms against Common Core standards. Does the Manchester math standards do that? Because that was never answered during that presentation. Will the students be prepared for Algebra 1 by 8th grade? Because that's the gold standard, and that there's no reason that cannot be done with a good math curriculum, with good teachers, that can be the gold standard, can be done in Manchester. But how do you know that this is going to produce that? You don't know that because most parents, I can't even as a math tutor sit down and go through these standards and tell you whether that's being done. This is the information that needs to be conveyed to parents. It's not being given to parents right now through the administration and through your school board, and it is the school board that needs to demand this from the administrators. Right. So parents need to go out and say, look, school board members, we elected you to represent us. We want all information on the table, not just the good, but we want to know where the flaws are, where the problems are, so we can determine whether we want something better.
Well, in our capacity as parents and citizens and taxpayers, we need the experts to vet the standards.
Yes.
So that we can feel confident that what we have is appropriate, age appropriate.
Yes.
It is, benchmarked with peers in other countries for the students. And so that when they're competing for seats in the colleges, there won't be just the Asians that get them. Because Dr. Milgram did say it's the Pacific Asian Rim. Those students are the ones getting into Stanford or any of these other colleges because they know how to do calculus if they're going for STEM. I mean, certainly not all students in the school go for STEM, but you have to bring everybody to the least common denominator.
That's right. And how many of these schools, these private schools, are using Common Core? That's a good question you should ask yourself. Because I've called some of the elite private schools. They won't touch this. They won't touch this. Their standards are higher because parents demand better. And there's no reason that we can't get a quality education in our public schools. Certainly public schools face many more challenges. And I think everybody understands that. But when it comes to a set of standards, it almost seems like the elitists who push these reform efforts are constantly saying, we're going to lower the bar for you public school students. I mean, Bill Gates, one of the, funders of Common Core, do you think his kids are subjected to this? Of course not. Of course not. Neither is President Obama's. So, these are the kinds of things that they seem to, we'll just kind of push this on the public schools, but we're not going to let this happen to our own kids. That should tell you something. That should tell you that, wait a second, maybe we need to, as parents, take this power back and demand better. And I think that can be done. We're seeing it across the United States.
There needs to be more communication by the administration to the school board and to the school board to the community, and we haven't got that. So next Monday on the 11th, we're going to go there and we're going to ask them to table this motion so they can come and give us the information.
Right, right.
And we can, if anyone says, well, what do you want instead? We have an answer for that.
Well, it's I think it's kind of easy, actually, because we have quality standards out there that have been developed. I'm going to give you an example. Fordham Foundation is a big proponent of Common Core standards, but Fordham also has a mathematician. His name is Professor W. Stephen Wilson, who has done a lot of analysis of math standards across the country. And if you read some of his articles, he identifies states that had better standards than Common Core. So even the supporters of Common Core standards have identified standards that are better. So when that has happened, then you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to go back and spend more taxpayer dollars. Look at what happened in Wakefield, New Hampshire. Wakefield recently, and I should probably go back and explain some of the things that went on in Wakefield. Wakefield, their school board said, wait a second, they began looking at Common Core and said, wait a second, this is not what we want for our kids. We want something better too. And so I had gone up there, I did a presentation with one of the state reps up there, and we kind of went over what the problems that we saw with Common Core. So they continued to do more and more research, and they, as a school board, elected to adopt the Massachusetts standards. Now, Massachusetts is certainly some of the best standards. If you go look at the old California standards, the math standards, outstanding, unbelievable. They go all the way through calculus, so they fully prepare kids for the STEM fields. So they adopted the Massachusetts standards, and recently they had Dr. Stotsky come up and address the school board to kind of ask her questions on, how did you do it in Massachusetts? And she talked about how you do this, what is the successful way to getting what you want in your district. And it's almost like Manchester kind of said, okay, parents, we're going to do this local thing, these local standards, but they really just didn't put the full faith effort into this. And bravo to the teachers who worked on this, given the parameters that they had to deal with. And I don't know if your viewers know this, but Manchester a while ago agreed to this innovative plan. And inside that innovative plan, you can find it on their website under our number 17. You're going to see where the principals and the teachers are now subjected, their evaluations are now subjected to how well students do on their performance. And how do you judge their performance? You judge it through testing. So, one of the things that has been a concern amongst No Child Left Behind is this teach to the test, and you're going to see more and more of that. But now you've tied a teacher and a principal in your district to these Common Core tests. Now you've given these teachers this task to go out and develop standards. Now I'm a teacher sitting here thinking, my evaluation is based on how well my kids perform on a Common Core test. Geez, do I really want to go outside the Common Core standards and look at better standards, or do I want to teach to this test? And one of the most glaring things that was presented when the administrators and the teachers presented to the school board the Manchester Academic Standards about a month or two ago was the fact that they had a Common Core test prep consultant come in and work with your teachers on these standards. So what we're seeing here is again this focus on teaching to the test, and you have a Common Core test. You've pretty much put teachers and principals into this box and said you're going to be evaluated on Common Core tests, and then you're going to say, but we want you to come up with different standards or better standards. I mean, it's kind of like saying, I want you to go this car lot and I want you to pick out a car, and you can pick any color you want, but you only have red cars there. What do you think? They're going to pick a red car.
And we have Common Core textbooks and Common Core Pearson handouts, worksheets, and
the test. And the
that
tests.
and they're all aligned to that test, and
Yeah.
so anything better won't be tested.
Right. Right.
So
And-
why waste their time?
yeah, and I think the mayor's right to try to stop this test dead in its
Yes,
tracks.
stop this
However,
test.
I would caution, because I talked to people all across the country as a researcher, and I talked to a school board member in a different state recently who said, yeah, they got rid of the Common Core test. They just replaced it with another Common Core test. So
Right.
be careful if you want to replace it with an SAT, because the SATs are going to be Common Core aligned. What I would suggest to the mayor and to parents and to teachers is to look at tests that have longevity. Iowa Basic Skills Test, the Stanford Achievement Test, California Achievement Test, something that's been around a while that is not Common Core aligned. Then you've taken that off of the teachers, and now the teachers are, if you're going to teach to the test, at least it's an academic-based test. It's not based on, kids understanding or trying to understand confusing math problems and trying to answer questions that, basically set them up for failure.
Well, the easiest thing is if Manchester adopts the old Massachusetts standards that are benchmarked and vetted and validated and valid, or whatever word you want to put there, use the MCAS test.
Yeah.
The MCAS is already aligned to that test, and
Although I believe it's going to be Common Core aligned. But, there's other
which one?
ways. I believe that MCAS is eventually going Common Core
well, we'll have
aligned.
to take the original
Right.
before.
Right, before it was.
Right.
But there's other tests out there. I've talked to the
Right.
people at the Iowa Basic Skills Test. I've spoken to them directly. They have both. They have a Common Core aligned test, and they don't, because a lot of homeschoolers won't touch this. A lot of homeschoolers are going to use an actual test that tests academic knowledge. So in your legislators, your state legislators, get them on board. Legislation that opens up testing to schools. If a school decides they don't want to use Common Core, we need to make sure that there are tests available to them that they can use.
They have to have an alternative. They have to be
Yes.
able to choose. If their curriculum is, or their standards are such, if we choose Massachusetts and Manchester, then we need to be able to have freedom to choose the appropriate test that goes with those standards and
Exactly.
curriculum.
Exactly.
You can't be forced to do a test that's not even related.
And honestly, this should be coming from the governor. This is something that the governor's office and the Department of Education in New Hampshire should be doing for your schools. And the fact that they're not pursuing that they're not working on this, I suspect that they may come up with some alternative tests, but my guess is they're going to be Common Core, again, aligned tests, because that's what we're seeing in some of the other states. Yeah, they'll pull out the Smarter Balance, but then they implement something like an SAT that's, again, going to be Common Core aligned. So you got to give the schools freedom to choose the standards, but the freedom to choose the testing that goes along with it. Because right now what we're seeing is the Department of Education in New Hampshire, they're on record. Absolutely, you can use whatever standards you want. Well, of course, you can use whatever standards you want, but we're going to test you on Common Core. I mean, that forces these schools.
It seems unconstitutional.
It is. It's almost like
contradictory
it's a
to local
setup.
control. Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
And but folks can go to New Hampshire Families for Education, and
That's
they can
good.
find
Yep.
out
Go to
the
website.
the survey. They can find out all about Common Core and all this information we're talking about. But they can also go to find the candidate survey.
Yes. Matter of fact, I live in Bedford, so I made sure that the survey was sent to every candidate running for state rep right now and Senate. And it's a survey that if you want to know more about where your candidate stands, go to NewHampshireFamiliesForEducation.org. Download and see if they filled out the survey, see how they were graded. And if they haven't filled it out, send the survey to them. There's a couple other great websites. There's StopCommonCoreNH.org. A lot of good information there. If you're on Facebook, Stop Common Core in New Hampshire is on Facebook, and I think there's even Stop Common Core in Manchester Facebook page now.
Manchester parents
Against Common
Core,
Right,
on the
right.
Facebook.
Right. And, I think that the district took a step in the right direction when in the very beginning, but they just haven't gone far enough. And they just need parents to continue to say, we want you to go further. This is a district that can do what Wakefield is doing. This is a district that, back several months ago when they started this process, you had the mayor say, I want the best standards in the state. Well, that's not what you have.
No.
That's not what you have, and you need to demand better. And I hope that he takes that leadership role back and says, look, school board and committee and parents, we hear you again, and we want to do something better. And yes, this was a step forward, but you need to go even further. You need to make sure that everybody is comfortable with what you propose.
Right, and on Monday night, the 11th, we're going to be there and let them know that we're not happy, and there's nothing wrong with asking for the best.
Right.
Why can't we have better?
Yeah.
Why do you have to give us the floor?
Yeah.
Can't you put something on it that at least is comparable to the Massachusetts old standards that were #1 in the world practically?
Right.
And that's not rocket science, I don't think.
And I think it's fair to have, you have the two nations experts, you have them at your fingertips, you have them pro bono. It is fair to go to them, ask them, where are we still lacking? Let them do an analysis and give that information to the parents. And if, if there's a couple things that need tweaked, then we tweak them locally. And if the information has got to get out there, we've got to have that kind of information to make these decisions. I'm amazed that the school board would not want this information before making that decision.
Right.
I think Dr. Stotsky the other day said that not one school board member has contacted her. Now, I've got their email addresses. I email these people all the time, both of them all the time. I've known them for years and years and years, and they are very responsive, want to help. I mean, they're offering their services for free. So why? The first question that should be asked of every parent when you go to the school board meeting on the 11th, have you, school board member, contacted these two individuals, ask them about the process that happened in Manchester and what has been developed. What are the things that are still missing? Have you done it? Have you been asked to do an analysis on these standards? If not, why not? Your school board members can contact them directly and really do the homework that it takes to make this decision on the 11th. And I think what they're going to find out is, you're right, this is not the time to rubber stamp through a set of standards that are not worthy of these students and these teachers.
No.
These teachers deserve better too. They're going to be judged on this.
And if this is the best that our school administrators can do, is incomplete and unprofessional, then we need new administrators.
Yep.
That's bottom line. And the school board members need to hold them accountable, okay? Because we will hold the school board members accountable on election day. So, I mean, it's just this the way it works.
Yeah.
So we need to, press on folks and let them know that we're not happy, and we are not going away, and we will continue not to be happy all through the next year, and be at every school board meeting, and be on public access, wherever, put flyers out. I mean, we're like the watchdogs here.
Well, I think a good frame of reference for those who sit on the school board and who think that they're just going to rubber stamp this through is the fact that these standards were adopted in 2010. So 4 years ago, nobody knew what was going on. Nobody heard of Common Core. School board members didn't hear about it. Legislators hadn't heard about it. I heard about it, but 99% of the population had not. But guess what? They're waking up. Moms are waking up across this country. Teachers are waking up. We have heads of unions coming out against these standards because they're developmentally inappropriate for children, especially in the lower grades. You're hearing from people who at first glance said, "Wow, this looks good. We're gonna make some improvements." Who are now going, "Wait a second, this was not what we had in mind, and this is a problem." Especially in New York, they're a year ahead of us. So this movement is growing, and I would mirror it to what happened with No Child Left Behind. A lot of promises for No Child Left Behind when it was first developed, and you had bipartisan support for it. Everybody was on board with it, and then look where we're at now with No Child Left Behind. Is there anybody who still thinks that reform effort was good for our schools.
Yeah.
And so this is going to go in the same direction. We see the momentum building. It's not going away. This is not going to go away. The parents are demanding better. And you know what? The one good thing to come out of Common Core is it has awoken a lot of moms. And for that, I'm very grateful for,
Right.
because as a researcher, I've always been demanding better. And so if I get moms to now say, you know, join me in this effort, that's been a great thing.
The moms have so many Facebook pages. I mean, there's a Facebook page for everything.
That's true.
You know, the grandparents opposed to Common Core, against Common Core. There's so many.
Yeah.
Just put in Common Core, whatever, on Facebook, and put your town or your city or whatever, and you'll have a Facebook
Oh yeah,
page
they're,
there.
they're popping up every day. Every day I see new ones pop up because
Yeah.
all across this country, parents are saying no. I mean, you have child psychologists saying no because they're developmentally inappropriate. You have teachers saying no because they're seeing the real problems. They're seeing that, you know, now we have to be forced to teach to these unvalidated, problematic tests that you know, really don't even judge whether a child really knows their math facts.
And another thing too, the special needs children, they need to be very wary about these tests and the conditions that the children will be put in, and the stresses for hours and hours on this, however they do it, on the computer or even a paper test. The parents should actually be standing outside the door while this child's taking that test.
I would be
to see if
the
that
room.
child's crying,
Yeah.
wetting its pants,
Yeah.
because that's called Common Core syndrome.
Yeah, and we're seeing that. We're seeing that
Common
with
Core
children.
syndrome. And this is just horrifying, horrible, and no student should have to be put through that.
Yeah, and the data collection, the data mining of information, I mean, that's something that even maybe your older students can come on August 11th and start saying, what kind of information are you collecting on me? Where is this information going? What's going to be on these standardized tests? Because that's going to be one of the data collectors. You know, that's the kind of information that, you know, if I was a high school student, I mean, you know, the little kids might not understand this as well, but the high school students and the parents need to really start asking these questions. There's even, you know, there's a good piece by the Pioneer Institute. If you go to the Pioneer Institute website, they did a really detailed piece on the data collection and the privacy issues that's part of this reform effort. And every parent, you need to ask your school board members, have you read that? And if they haven't read that, give it to them and ask them to read it, because every one of your school board members should be reading that piece from the Pioneer Institute on the data collection. Very important for parents.
Well, sorry to say that Frank didn't call in.
Nope.
Unfortunately, we'll have to catch him on the
Yeah.
campaign trail somewhere else. But anyway, folks, we will come back to you next week, and we'll inform you what happened. Well, actually, the 11th, we won't be informing you what happened because we're not live. And even then, it won't be till the following week. But you'll be
Eventually.
hearing from us on probably someone else's show on public access here. So thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for coming, presenting to us, and helping me out
Thanks for
here.
having me.
And waiting for Frank to call. And we'll see you folks next week. Take care.